Good afternoon. My name is James Deitch. Since I began my graduate studies, I've primarily focused on the origins of our country and primarily the American Revolution. As I've moved on through my studies, I've begun to move away from the military aspect of that and more towards the ideas and the history of the ideas of our country. I've focused on the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and over the last several weeks, I've been looking very heavily at the Bill of Rights and more particularly the First Amendment. To understand the Bill of Rights or even the Constitution and Declaration of Independence, you must begin and end with the thoughts and ideas of Thomas Jefferson. And so that's where I've zeroed in on. As we look at our own ideas and ideologies and thoughts and beliefs, we can credit our parents, our grandparents, our teachers, and our pastors. Jefferson was no different, but in his time, he was looking more to other Enlightenment leaders and the thoughts that they might have had on the various subjects of freedom and liberty. While in France, he was very disturbed by the fact that while the Constitution captured a lot of the essence of what we as a country needed, what we needed to do to restrict government, what they can and cannot do, it didn't afford a Bill of Rights to the people. And he very vehemently addressed that. To really understand where he was coming from is to understand the ideas of freedom and liberty, but I've discussed that before, so I'm not going to get into that here. What I do want to discuss is where Jefferson got his ideas, what is so important about that and what they really mean. The First Amendment is perhaps the most misinterpreted, misquoted, misunderstood of any of the amendments. The amendment itself, it says that the Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. I won't get into freedom of speech or the press right now. I want to talk about religion. What the intent and what the context of this amendment was is that the government cannot impose religion on the people and it cannot restrict the people to practice religion the way they intended to do so. Now, where did separation of church and state come from? It certainly didn't come from the amendment. It certainly didn't come from the Constitution. Nowhere does it say separation. Nowhere does it say church. And nowhere does it say state. Those words actually came from a letter to the Danbury Baptist Association in Connecticut in 1802 in response to their concern whether the federal government would impose any restrictions or impose a practice of religion on them. Now, that was not unfounded because many states at that time were, in fact, institutionalizing religion in their states. Theirs happened to be one of them. So they were concerned about his attitudes regarding that. Those words were to ensure that they did not, in fact. Now, ultimately, all of the states would get rid of imposed and institutionalized religion, Massachusetts being the last one in 1833. But it was not Jefferson's. It was not the intent. And I hope that we will be able to get into much greater discourse and discussion beyond the scope of this presentation this morning. But I would encourage you to read Gerald Sandler's in the Journal of the History of Ideas, the comparison of John Locke's ideas against Jefferson's. Jefferson didn't plagiarize, but he certainly borrowed from it. And one thing is certain, religion is part of the institutions that comprise our country and make it what it is. I look forward to our discussion on this subject.